Good day, everyone. My name is Rosa de Lima Manco, and I am from Group 5. So today I am going to discuss about the keys to prevent injury. So I know we are already familiar of injury. So today we are not just discussing a simple or general injury. So we are going to discuss the keys to prevent injuries in the workplace, especially we are working in a hospitality industry, in the kitchen, hotel, or airport, or wherever you would wish to work for. So first, let us define what is really an injury. So I know you are already familiar how injury looks like, what is it, and what are the effects of the injury into our body. So this is the definition, a general definition of the injury. So it says here that an injury is a physical harm to someone's body caused by an accident or an attack. Generally, it refers to the harm caused by accidents or falls or hits or weapons and many more that you can mention. So there you go. This is the definition of an injury, which is very understandable because we always encounter this in our daily lives. So even if you are not working, you are playing games, or even if you're just standing or walking, you encounter circumstances in your daily life that might cause injury to you, or just like stripping into a little stone, it will already cause an injury. So here we are going to discuss what is injury in the workplace. So injury in the workplace or workplace injuries, well, technically it is still injury or illnesses, but this is in relation to the employee's job. So the injury happened inside the workplace. So now I am going to tell you or advise you some tips, or I have here 10 keys to prevent injuries. First is inform your supervisor for any unsafe conditions. So if you see something that could cause accident or possible illness or injury for you or for your co-workers, you have to speak up. You have to let your supervisor know, because the supervisor or the manager will be the one who can take action and report this to the higher ups so that they can prevent the risk of injury in your workplace. So we have to be cautious. Of course, if there is something unusual, you have to report that, because the supervisor will take action in preventing it and making some action plan so that no harm thing will happen inside the workplace. So next is preventing slips and falls. You know, it is very common anywhere you go that we get slips or falls, or our co-workers whenever we step on something like a banana peel or a wet floor or greasy surfaces. So I'm going to provide you tips so that we can prevent slips and falls that could lead to possible injury to the employees. So you have to keep the surfaces clean and dry. Except to the fact that this is a physical hazard that could cause slip or injuries, this is also a biological hazard. So it will promote the growth of microorganisms such as molds, bacteria, and fungi that could lead to infections. So that's other benefit as well of making sure that the surfaces are dry. So going back to the topic about injury, so we really have to keep the floors clean and dry so that we can avoid the workers to possible injury. So if possible, if you are mopping the floor, so we cannot really deny that we have to wipe or mop the floor in case it is really dirty, because it will also promote the bacteria or growth of bacteria. So you really have to mop the floor and keep it clean. But whilst it is still not dry, so you will put there a caution or a sign so that it will avoid any possible accidents in the workplace, so that the employees that will pass near the area will be aware that the floor is still wet and you cannot step on it. So next is you have to clean up the spills immediately, just like spills of water, grease, or food or oil. So this also relates to the first idea here, to keep the area or surfaces clean and dry. Of course, if you step on something slippery, you will fall on the floor or slip. So you may incur also injury in your back or in your feet or in your hands, right? So it is really dangerous if there are oily spills in the surfaces. And next here, you have to put caution signs. So that's what I told you or I have discussed earlier, that whenever the surface or the floor is still wet, you have to put caution signs so that the people will be aware and will not be able to step on it. Next, you have to wear proper footwear. So I have experience working in a kitchen. So even though that the floor is not wet, it is really slippery. I think it is because of the tiles. Its tile is kind of slippery, so we have to wear rubber shoes so that it will not slip or slide easily, especially that the operation is a fast pace, so you don't have time to like a turtle or slow down your actions, because there are a lot of orders coming in, so it's really fast paced. So you need to wear proper footwear. You have to wear the rubber shoes that is required inside the workplace. Same as well as if you are working in a hotel, in a housekeeping department. So as you have noticed, I'm not sure if you already experienced working in a hotel, but if you are in a housekeeping department, they are actually using rubber shoes because also of the hazards that is present anywhere when they are working. So they are always bringing disinfectants or water to clean the rooms, and it will be very harmful if they are not wearing proper footwear. They could easily slip into those liquid chemicals that they are using. We can also use matting in wet areas to avoid slips and falls, like a rubber mat, especially in the dishwashing area. So if you cannot keep it dry all the time because you are always washing the dishes that are being used in the kitchen, that are being passed out from the dining area. So if you are the dishwasher, you don't have to keep it, you don't have time to keep it dry all the time. So as what I have observed or experienced when I was working in Cafe George, our dishwasher there put a rubber mat in his area, so that in the event that it is really busy, so the dishwasher won't have to keep mopping the area all the time to avoid slips and fall. So he can just stand there, bob on top of the rubber mat, and will mop it later on if the face is no longer busy. So he can take the time later on to mop or keep the floor dry. So we have to ensure as well that the drainage is sufficient and is working properly in the wet areas. So what I have mentioned earlier, especially in the dishwashing area. So if your drainage is not working properly, so it could leak and the water will not be drained totally, and it will possibly it will spread on the other parts of the room and could lead possible injuries because of the slips and fall of the employees in the workplace. Next is fire safety. So fire could happen anytime. So we should always anticipate this and be prepared for it to come. So it's not that we really would like to experience fire in the workplace, but this could happen and this is unpredictable. So we have to make sure that we are always prepared. And there are some tips that we have to make sure in the workplace. So every employer should have or maintain an emergency action plan, a fire prevention plan, and should train the employees properly. So we have practice in our NSTP, right, about emergency plan, fire emergency plan. So this is not going to stop just in the school, right? So after we graduate, if we are already working, so there is still fire emergency plan, emergency action plan. So we should keep our learnings to us, and this is going to be helpful in the future. Especially here, employers should train their employees accordingly. So if you already have a basic knowledge about that, so it will be much easier for you in the future for you to be prepared on this type of cases. So we have to keep flammable things away from open flames. So this is very common, especially in working in the kitchen. So you have to keep the oil away from the fire. So I really notice, so when our chef is cooking some courses or dishes, that they will ignite the fire they will ignite the fire there using the oil. So I could tell that oil is highly flammable. So if it's not necessary, so you have to keep it away from the burning flame so that we can prevent fire. So in case of fire emergency, so you should know the locations of the power sources so that you have to turn it off, because it is really important to turn it off so that it will prevent the fire to spread more. Next is we have to keep our work areas and emergency exits clear. So why is it that we have to keep the work areas and emergency exits clear? What is the connection in preventing from injuries? Because if there are emergency, so it is really expected there could be stampedes, or you will get panic, and then you maybe, I don't know, but it's really important to have presence of mind, right? But if in the event that the emergency exits or work areas are not clear, so it could lead to possible injuries to each individual. An emergency evacuation plan should be developed and all employees are trained. So this is also one of the reasons that the manager on duty should have a complete list of who are working on that day, so that they will be able to ensure in case of emergency to keep all the employees safe and far from injuries. So let us go back to the previous slide. So take a look at this picture. So this is an example of keeping the emergency exits clear, and there is a sign here. This is the evacuation plan of the workplace. So this should be present in the workplace area for everyone to see immediately and could respond immediately as well to the emergency. So make sure to keep work areas and emergency exits clear, because a cluttered area could be dangerous to each individual in the workplace. So it is really important that everyone should know where is the meeting place, so that the manager or the supervisor can make sure that everyone is safe and is away from harm. So the manager on duty should make sure that everyone is safe and all accounted for, and it's already safe from the fire and already evacuated out of the building. So it is really important as well that all employees are trained or are about the evacuation. Next is I'm going to discuss here as well the keys to prevent accidents in using hazardous materials. So when you say hazardous materials, what comes to our mind? Right? So we think of chemicals, right? Insecticide, pesticides, or other chemical agents that we use in the workplace. So there should be proper way in using these chemicals, and we have to study it. So employers are required to have a written hazard communication program, or what we call the HCP, if their employees may be exposed to hazardous chemicals. Each day, there are a lot of workers that are potentially exposed to a number of chemical hazards, causing serious health problems or even death. So it is the reason why all workers is really needed to be trained to recognize potential chemical hazards and use proper protective equipment and protocols. So we really cannot avoid chemicals in the workplace, especially if it is needed for the type of job that you are working on. So that is the reason why that the employees should be trained in recognizing potential chemical hazard in these chemicals that they are using. So they should know the proper use of the equipments and the proper use of the chemicals, so that they will be able to prevent any accidents in the workplace just by the use of the chemicals. So employer or even the employees should maintain a current list of chemicals. So they should know, or you should know, what are the chemicals that is present in the workplace, so it is easier for you to identify which are the chemicals and which are not. Next is to maintain current safety data sheets. So if you're not familiar, I am going to tell you what is safety data sheets. So the safety data sheet, or what they formerly call the material safety data sheet, so this is a detailed informational document prepared by the manufacturer or importer of the hazardous chemical. So it actually describes the physical and chemical properties of the product. So the STS are required actually by law as part of the OSHA's hazard communication standard. So this requires that the chemical manufacturer or importer or the distributor to provide STH for hazardous chemicals in order to effectively communicate information about the hazards of the particular chemical that is being used or handled. So there you go. So that is the safety data sheet and the importance of it. So it is really know that it is really important that we know the content of the chemicals, so that we can handle the situation if in case there emergency, right? So you already know what is the content of the chemical, and you are already aware what are the first aid or the things that you need to do. So store hazardous materials in its appropriate container areas. So we should have a designated place where the chemicals are going to be kept, so away from the food contents, for example in the workplace kitchen. So if you have disinfectants or dishwashing liquids or soap or pesticide, insecticides, cleaning agents, you have to make sure that there's a separate container or storage area for those away from the food content or the vegetables or meats that you are using in the workplace. Then follow recommendations for protection from hazards. So we also need to make sure that the ventilation in the workplace is clean and is working properly. Right? So it will cause as well injuries or accidents in the workplace if the engineering controls are not measured and is not kept. So we have to make sure that everything is working properly. So next is employees should always keep their PPEs or the personal protective equipment. So they should wear it all the time inside the workplace because this is going to help a lot in preventing accidents and injuries in the workplace. So this is actually required by the OSHA guidelines for protection. So it is important as well that the employees are trained in using the PPEs or the personal protective equipment. So I am going to tell you as well tips in preventing falling objects, or should we say preventing injuries from falling objects. So use protections like toe boards, toe rails, and nuts to prevent falling objects from falling. So take a look at this picture. So there are books on top of the shelves and there are no protection around the shelf. So could be that the shelf lose its balance and then it falls. So those objects on top of the shelf falls as well. So what happened to the employee, right? So she got hit by the things that is on top of the shelf. So it will already cause injury to that employee near the falling shelf. So it is really important that there should be something like protecting that shelf in case that the shelf is going to be out of balance. So it will prevent it from falling. Right? So next, stock boxes neatly and place heavier objects on lower shelves. So of course it is really common sense, right, that we should always put first and the bottom those heavier objects. So keep stock boxes and objects out of the way of aisles and work areas as well. So let me continue first regarding stacking lighter and heavier objects. So for example, get an empty box, or not literally empty, or just put something there that is of a lighter weight. So then you cover the box and then you put on top of the box another box, and on that box you put something heavy like a pile of books or like kitchen utensils that are much heavier. So what will happen? So the first box will collapse, obviously, because it doesn't have strength, right? So the objects inside that first box are actually lighter than the one that is on top. So it is really a hazard. So we have to make sure, so those books that we put on top should be the one at the bottom, and then you put the lighter objects on top of it. So in the event that you'll stack another pile of objects on top, so make sure that the heaviest is at the bottom, so that it will keep its face and it will have a stronger foundation and will keep the things from falling. And do not put it on the aisle as well, so it could easily be slipped off by hands or any moving objects. So it's really hazardous to put the stock boxes on piles, so you have to put them neatly on the desired location. Next is keys to material handling. So why is it important that we should also practice the correct material handling? What is the connection as well to the keys to prevent injuries? So of course, common sense, right? So if you're not handling the materials properly, so it will cause accident in the workplace. So we can see here in this picture the safe handling of heavy items. So first, when you lift something, you do not bend your back. So it is not really advisable to bend the back of your body. So the correct way to lift something is to bend your knees first. So bend your knees and then keep your back straight, and then reach for the thing that you would like to carry. And then after that, do not slouch walking. When walking, do not slouch while carrying the thing, because it will cause you back injury. So while walking, carrying that object, so you have to keep your body straight, right? And do not carry too much things at a time. So if you cannot carry a lot of objects at one time, so it's okay. So you carry things one at a time, and make sure that your face is not covered with the things that you carry, so that you can see, you can still see the way that you're walking into. Or if possible, if you really need to get all of those things carried, you can use something that you can put the things into. Like you can see in this picture, I'm not sure what how do you call this, but you see the person is using something to carry and lift out those objects, right? So many employees work in a fast-paced and sometimes dangerous environment. So not the least of those dangers is the risk of back injury. The amount of strain placed on the muscles and disc of your back is directly related to handling techniques that you used every day. So I'm going to tell you here some tips to avoid back injury. So we have to follow these healthy back tips strictly. So first is, if your work will cost you strength or will exert effort, so you have to warm up prior to your work shift and periodically during your shift. So it will not take time, just 5 to 10 minutes warm up. You stretch your body, stretch your back, stretch your arms and legs. And during your shift, you do not slouch as well if possible. If there is an ample amount of time that you can move your body, you have to move it, so that it will help you prevent the back injury. And then maintain a healthy lower back posture by keeping the head up and back arched. So do not slouch like this. So you have to keep your posture right. So you you keep your head up and then back arc, or you have the chest out. Right, so that is the proper posture. So do not slouch, so it will cause you back injury. So pivot your feet instead of twisting your back. Right, so when your manager or the chef calls you, then do not twist your head or just twist your back. So it will lead to injury in your body. So you have to pivot your feet. So you move your feet before you turn around, so that you will still keep your posture. So when you are standing as well, make sure that you're using a staggered stance. So your feet should slightly be wider than your shoulder. And then you have to move smoothly. Avoid quick and jerky moves. So we really cannot prevent it, right? Because especially if you are working in the kitchen and there are a lot of orders coming in, so you have to make a fast move in finishing those orders. But make sure you are quick. You are quick but in a smooth manner. So do not use jerky movements that could lead to injuries or collisions in the workplace. So keep loads close to your body. So if you're working in the hot kitchen, make sure that all the equipments that you're using in the hot kitchen is just near your working area, so that you don't have to take time moving into another area of the room to get the things that you need to for cooking. So do not work beyond your capacity. So if you cannot do it, if it is already outside your scope, do not force yourself. So it will just cause harm to you, and also it will cause harm to the other people around you. Use proper assistive devices. So use the correct devices if you need assistance, so that you can also avoid any accidents in the workplace. So next is take regular breaks. So how come it is included here? So I'm going to discuss you about how important it is to have regular breaks when working, because many work related injuries occur when an employee is tired or stressed. So extended or unusual work shifts may be more stressful physically, mentally, and emotionally. So if you are already drained and you do not take your breaks, so it may cause you to lose focus on your job and might not do the right thing to do inside the workplace. So this will cause accidents or injuries. For example, you are already working 8 hours straight, and then you still rendered around 2 to 3 hours overtime without breaks. So your body will be exhausted. So you will no longer have energy to complete the task, and possibly if you will make mistake in your job, that could lead to possible accidents or injuries inside the workplace. So look at this picture. The man is already exhausted. So do you think the man can still work tomorrow if he is that exhausted? So no, because we are not a robot or machine, we need to rest. Non-traditional shifts and extended work hours may disrupt the body's regular schedule, leading to increased fatigue, stress, and lack of concentration. These effects lead to an increased risk of operator error, injuries, and or accidents, as I have mentioned earlier, right? So the ninth key to prevent injury is to maintain and use equipment properly. So make sure that you are using each piece of equipment the way it was intended and that it is in proper condition. Regularly inspect and clean equipment to ensure that it is safe for use. So it is really important that you use the equipment in the correct way that it is intended to be used. So I will give you here the best example for this scenario. So when you are opening a can, right? So we don't have can opener. So we use the knives to open it, which is really dangerous, right? So you stick the knife to the can and then you open it like you are peeling or cutting something. So what if you cut your own finger? So right, that's a possible hazard. So we have to make sure that we use the knife to just cutting the vegetables or meats or fruits, not by opening the can. So what is the correct equipment to open the can? So we have the can opener. We have to make use of it. So I'm pretty sure that all the kitchen workplace has can opener, because it not just that it will be a safe thing to do, but it will also make the employee's job easier inside the kitchen area, because kitchen is a really fast paced environment. So we don't have time to open the cans using the knife. The knife may take longer, and it's also very harmful. So we have to make use properly of the can opener. And also make sure that all the equipment that we are using inside the kitchen workplace, like the rice cooker, the burner, the plates, oven, we have to make sure that they are regularly cleaned and it's already safe for use and already disinfected. So the 10th or the last key to prevent injury is in power industrial trucks. So when we hear power industrial trucks, so we think of something big like in a construction area or like those machineries. But I'm going to tell you something smaller here, or not really small, but is related to the hospitality industry or restaurant or hotels. So many employees are injured when lift trucks are inadvertently driven off loading docks or lifts fall between docks and unsecured trailers. So employees are also struck by lift trucks or fall while on elevated pallets. So I am going to discuss this with you in a simple term. So for example, in a kitchen or in a restaurant, so your orders or stocks are coming already, so there is like a van, so you have to lift the objects outside of the van and carry it to the kitchen. So we have to offload it properly. So there is like a ramp that you can pass the stocks, so that it will be much easier for all of you or the employees to relay or gather the materials. So it will also prevent injuries in your back, and it will also make your life or job easier. I am going to end this discussion here with a simple quote, a safety quote from Safety Culture, which is prepare and prevent instead of repair and repent. It is much better to prepare for a possible mishap and therefore prevent it from happening than have it happen and later regret it. It emphasizes the importance of taking proactive measures in the workplace rather than being reactive and dealing with the consequences later. It highlights the significance of foresight, planning, and taking preventive action to avoid problems rather than waiting for issues to arise and then attempting to fix them. So by focusing on preparation and prevention, organizations or the establishments can minimize disruptions and then improve efficiency and maintain a positive work environment. So this quote here serves a reminder to us that it is often more effective and efficient to invest effort in preventing problems rather than dealing with the consequences of neglect or oversight. Right? So those are the keys that I have mentioned, 10 keys earlier, that is really important to prevent injuries in the workplace. So it is better to prevent it than having to repair what will happen after, and then will regret the consequences of the things that happens to us, right? So it will save us our health, and it will also save us our pocket as well as the company's pocket, because it is much expensive to spend something to repair and to spend something for the consequences of what happened than to prevent it from coming. That will be all, and I hope you all keep safe, and thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something.